Formula One just admitted a massive mistake after only 4 races. The 50-50 engine era, officially dead. Replaced by a 60-40 split that completely changes how these cars deliver power, and exposes a flaw so big it was creating speed differences of up to 50 km per hour on the same straight. That's not a small issue. That's a system breaking in real time. And now, with one decision, the FIA hasn't just fixed the problem. They've flipped the entire competitive order overnight. Some teams just lost years of development. Others just gained a massive advantage without touching the car. And the most important part? This change could already be deciding who dominates the next era of Formula One. To understand why this decision has pushed teams to the edge, you have to go back to what the 50-50 concept was supposed to be, because this wasn't just another regulation. It was the identity of modern Formula One. Half combustion, half electric. A perfect balance that promised to redefine racing and connect the sport directly to the future of road cars. Clean, efficient, technologically advanced. That was the vision. And for a moment, it looked like Formula One had found the perfect formula. 2 power sources working together. One delivering constant performance, the other providing explosive boosts when needed. Controlled, precise, balanced. But that balance never truly existed on track. Because the electric side didn't behave like a stable partner. It behaved like a surge. Powerful, but short-lived. Unpredictable, and impossible to sustain. Imagine pushing at full speed, everything working perfectly, and then suddenly losing half your power with no warning. That's what drivers were dealing with. The battery would deliver maximum output, and then drain in just a few seconds. And the moment it drained, the car wasn't the same anymore. Not slightly slower. Completely different. Half the performance, gone instantly. But the real problem wasn't just losing power. It was what happened when another car didn't. Because Formula One is about direct comparison. Wheel to wheel. Same moment. Same straight. If one driver had full battery, and the other didn't, the difference became extreme. Up to 50 km per hour. That's not a gap. That's a disconnect. Because suddenly, overtaking wasn't about timing or skill. It was about energy. Who had it? Who didn't? And when it would disappear? Drivers couldn't predict moves. They couldn't trust the car. They couldn't rely on consistency. And in a sport built on precision, that changes everything. But here's what made the situation even worse. This wasn't occasional. It was constant. Lap after lap. Straight after straight. Battery drains. Power drops. Cars gaining and losing massive speed over and over again. And that creates something Formula One cannot accept. A system where performance shifts too fast, too unpredictably, for the driver to control. Because at that point, the driver is no longer fully in charge. The system is. So the FIA tried to fix it. Small changes. Software adjustments. Energy management tweaks. But those fixes only solved a fraction of the issue. Around 20%. The remaining 80% stayed exactly the same. And that's the moment everything changed. Because once you realize the problem is built into the concept itself, there's no tuning it. There's no adjusting it. There's only one option left. You replace it. And that's exactly what the FIA decided to do. But what they replaced it with is where the real consequences begin. And this is where everything shifts, because the moment the FIA introduced the 60-40 split, they didn't just solve a problem. They changed the entire behavior of the car. More power now comes from the combustion engine. Less from the electric system. And that single adjustment immediately reduces the most dangerous flaw of the old concept. Because now, when the battery runs out, the drop in performance is no longer catastrophic. You don't lose half the car. You lose a smaller portion. Enough to feel it, but not enough to completely destroy your pace. And that changes everything on track. Those extreme speed differences, the ones reaching up to 50 km per hour, begin to shrink into something drivers can actually manage. The car becomes more predictable, more stable, more controllable. And for the first time, the driver is back in charge. But here's where the story takes another turn. Because the total power of the car doesn't change. It stays almost exactly the same. What changes is the balance. The combustion engine gains around 50 kilowatts. The electric system loses around 50 kilowatts. Same total output. Completely different delivery. It's like redistributing weight inside a car. You don't make it heavier, but you completely change how it behaves. And in Formula One, behavior is everything. Because teams didn't just build engines. They built entire philosophies around that 50-50 balance. Cooling systems designed for heavy electrical demand. Software built to extract maximum energy efficiency. Strategies focused on when to deploy battery and when to save it. All of that now becomes less dominant. And that's where the tension starts to build. Because some teams mastered that system. They turned energy deployment into an art. They built their advantage on that 50%. And now, that advantage shrinks. Not completely gone, but reduced enough to change the competitive balance. While at the same time, other teams gain ground instantly. Because they were never dominant on the electric side. They struggled with it. But they were stronger in combustion. More consistent. More stable. And now, that strength matters more. Which means the gap closes without a single upgrade. And this is why the reaction across the paddock isn't just frustration. It's urgency. Because this isn't a small tweak. It's a redistribution of strengths. A shift that rewards some approaches and punishes others. But it goes even deeper than that. Because this change forces every team to rethink the entire car. More combustion power means more heat. More heat means new cooling systems. Increased fuel flow means changes in fuel systems, even fuel tank size. Weight distribution shifts. Balance changes. Race strategy evolves. And at the same time, the electric system becomes less dominant. Which means the entire energy management philosophy has to be rewritten. From scratch. This isn't an update. It's a rebuild. And it's happening faster than anyone expected. But here's the detail that makes this moment so critical. Because while some teams are scrambling to adapt, others are already perfectly aligned with this new direction. And that's where the real shift begins. And this is where the situation becomes impossible to ignore, because once you look at who benefits from this shift, the reaction across the grid suddenly makes sense. Because not all engines were built the same way. Some manufacturers went all in on the electric side. They invested years into energy recovery, deployment strategies, software precision, turning that 50% into their biggest weapon. And for a moment, it worked. They became dominant in short bursts, unmatched when the battery was full. But now, that entire advantage is worth less. Because the electric system no longer defines performance. It supports it. And that's a completely different role. Which means the teams that built their success on that system now have to adapt. Fast. But here's where the balance shifts even more. Because other teams took the opposite path. They focused on combustion. More stable power delivery. More consistency over long runs. Less reliance on short, explosive energy bursts. And under the old rules, that looked like a limitation. They couldn't match peak performance. They couldn't compete when everything was fully deployed. But now, that limitation becomes strength. Because the part they were already good at now matters more. And that shift happens instantly. Before upgrades. Before redesigns. Before development even begins. And that's what creates tension. Because this isn't just about improving. It's about how much you need to change to survive. Some teams now face a complete reset. Their entire philosophy, partially obsolete. Their data, less valuable. Their advantage, reduced. While others don't need to start over. They just need to refine. And in Formula One, that difference is massive. Because development takes time. And time is the one thing you can't recover. So while some teams are rebuilding, others are already moving forward. Quietly. Gaining momentum. And that's where the real danger appears. Because dominance doesn't come from one big upgrade. It comes from alignment. When engine, aerodynamics, cooling, and strategy all move in the same direction. And right now, the rules just changed that direction. Which means the teams that were already aligned are about to accelerate, while the others are forced to turn. And that's always where time is lost. But there's one more layer that makes this even more critical. Because this shift doesn't just affect performance. It affects decisions. Right now, every team is asking the same question. Do we fix what we built? Or do we abandon it and start again? Do we protect what we have? Or risk everything for what comes next? Those decisions define entire eras. And the teams that get it right now, won't just adapt to the 60-40 era. They'll control it. So when teams are furious, when they push back against this change, it's not just emotion. It's awareness. Because they understand something very few people see yet. This isn't just a rule change. It's a shift in the future. And someone is already ahead in that future. And this is where everything finally comes together, because the real impact of this decision isn't happening on track yet. It's happening in silence. Behind closed doors. In design rooms where the next era of Formula One is already being built. Because while the outside world is focused on what teams are losing, the real story is about who is gaining time. Right now. Because this shift to 60-40 doesn't just change performance. It changes direction. And in Formula One, direction is everything. If your concept matches where the rules are going, you don't slow down. You accelerate. You refine. You optimize. You move forward without hesitation. But if your concept is built around something that no longer matters as much, you hesitate. You question. You rebuild. And in that hesitation, you lose time. Time that other teams are already converting into performance. And that's the invisible gap forming right now. Because some teams are no longer solving yesterday's problems. They're already building tomorrow's solutions. More combustion efficiency. Better thermal management. Smarter fuel usage. Entire car concepts designed around stability instead of spikes. And when everything aligns like that, progress becomes exponential, not linear. Because every improvement supports the next one. Engine supports aerodynamics. Aerodynamics supports tire management. Tires support race pace. Everything moves in the same direction. And that's how dominance is created. Quietly. Before anyone sees it. But here's where the situation becomes even more intense. Because this change didn't just fix a technical flaw. It sent a message. A very clear one. Formula One is stepping back from extreme electrification and returning to something more controllable. More predictable. More driver-focused. And that clarity removes uncertainty. And when uncertainty disappears, the teams that understand the direction move faster than everyone else. Because they're no longer guessing. They're executing. And that's the final piece of this entire story. Because the teams that win in Formula One are not always the ones who react the fastest. They're the ones who understand first. Who see the shift before it becomes obvious. Who build for the future before it arrives. And right now, that future has just been revealed. The 60/40 era isn't just a regulation. It's a new foundation. A new philosophy. A new direction that will define everything that comes next. And some teams are already perfectly aligned with it. Which means while others are still adjusting, they are already advancing. And that's why the reaction across the paddock feels so intense. Because deep down, every team knows the truth. This moment isn't just about fixing a mistake. It's about who takes control of what comes after. Because by the time the new cars hit the track, the advantage won't be visible in one corner. Or one straight. It will be built into the entire machine. And by then, catching up might not be possible. So now, the real question isn't who is angry about the change. It's much more important than that. Who understood it first? And is already building the car that will dominate because of it?